Started all of the critiques with my microphone muted. So excuse me while I go cry for a few minutes. Just kidding. So hopefully this video will be shorter because I already looked through all your designs. First of all, I want to say thank you for everyone. If you've been able to say any prayers for my little guy Eli, he's home from the hospital as of yesterday. And so we're just on lots of medicine and doctor's visits and trying to keep a 6-year-old from running for 2 weeks. So that's going to be fun. But I appreciate everyone's prayers. I want to do a few quick reminders before I start going through your draft critiques again, which are be sure that you are blending 2 images together in a way that is non-literal, okay? So there needs to be some type of message you're sending with your images. A lot of you are forgetting to add that logo. Be sure to add some kind of company logo into your design, and that it has a specific brand so you can use a logo. And then you're also missing these 3 things that you need to have on your ad: a creative headline, body copy of a few sentences, and a call to action. Also, make sure you definitely do 2 different sizes. I'm okay if you want to maybe only use, maybe like get rid of the body copy if you have a teeny tiny Facebook ad and you can't fit it on there and all you can fit is a headline and a logo for one of your designs. But at least the larger design needs to hit all 3 of these with the written content, the company logo, and the blended images. All need to be on at least one. Your smaller one, you can edit it out so you're able to still send a clear message with your images. But everything else needs to be on both of your ads generally, okay? So that is it for some reminders. Let's go ahead and do these critiques again. And I can tell that my volume is working this time. Maybe a little paranoid about that now. Okay, Tina, you're the first one we looked at. Here are a few things I love. I love this typeface. I love that you added in contrasting typeface down here with the italics. I think maybe I'd recommend using this typeface up here because this one is such a similar width with the size of the letters. It took me a second initially to realize that this was even a contrasting typeface. If you want to keep this contrasting typeface, I'd probably bump up the size, or I would make it all caps, or I would make it black so it stands out. And then another thing is you have such a big space between these. I would move this up so the spacing is consistent with your lines, okay? So make sure that's good. Another thing is down here, he's mostly not floating. You added this shape, but because you have the sky that wraps around underneath him, it gives you a feeling that he's still floating awkwardly, just this torso. So I would move this shape down a little bit, maybe so it's sitting on this line, and then he won't be floating in the air. And then I'd probably decrease the size of try one today so it's within this black line. I might even instead use red if you're on it black so it doesn't look so much like Halloween. Maybe you pull up the red that's on this dust free and have it sit kind of within the line, maybe in all caps, or maybe you pull this font and do it again. Because this feels a little bit abrupt. My eye is almost so drawn to this that I'm missing your cool element of your blended images. Okay, so maybe you use this typeface in italics, try one today. You could leave it in, orange or red if you wanted to. I'd probably bump it over so it's on the right side of the page. And then maybe you could either leave this logo here with your nice strong left alignment or move the logo over here to the right alignment and have it aligned with your try one today. So you have your call to action over here. Okay, and then I would get rid of this stroke that goes around the background. See how it has this gray stroke, which is a little bit distracting. Okay, so everything else is looking really good. I love your blended images, super clever, and the background with the changes you've made is looking even better than it was before. Oh, one final thing is his shoulder. It looks a little bit too fuzzy. Try to go in and make this a little bit more crisp since you're losing it. It's making it look a little bit blurry, a little bit weird when you compare it to how crisp all the rest of your selection is. All right, thanks, Tina. You're off to a great start. All right, Kylie, you opted in. A few things that I thought were really good about this is I love the overall layout. This nice center alignment, usually we avoid that, but because the visual elements are centered, I think it works really well. I might switch around your words to think lucky so the message is communicated instantly. And then remember, you need to definitely insert a logo here. So whatever your light bulb is, make sure you insert that logo either in a corner or center aligned with your message down here. I also mentioned I would probably make this a little bit smaller. It feels a little bit too large in proportion to your other element. And then the other thing that's throwing me is I've never seen a brick wall laid up and down like this. So it's almost a tiny bit distracting. I think it'd be helpful if maybe you switch it so the bricks are going horizontally, which might look good anyway, because then you'll have where your ideas come to life will be on these dark bricks, which would help your typeface pop even more. So I love the direction you're heading. Your images and your typefaces are off to a really great start. So just keep on refining. Make sure you get that logo on there. Okay, thanks, Kylie. All right, Dixie, I love that you uploaded 2 sizes so we could take a look at it. One thing is this hand here, it feels like it's floating a little bit. Feels like it might have been cut off a little bit. So I would probably rotate this hand a tiny bit more so there's not this gap of gray in there. And then this size, I think overall looks really good. The only thing is this gray splotch in the background is competing a little bit with your logo here. And also I'd probably make the US the same as Shelby Co. in sizing. I'm not sure if you need to have it different. I think it maybe just ends up making it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. Okay, so you did a good job with the left alignment here. It does look a little busy though. So one thing you could play around with is, will you survive the apocalypse? Maybe all right aligned over here, including this. And then this actual tool could maybe be left aligned with the canister or right above your logo. Okay, so I think that's one thing we need to work on a little bit is the placement of everything. And especially I thought that on this ad because they all feel like they're grouped here a little bit too closely. So maybe we could move this up to this space and then will you survive? I like that you have your tool and this right aligned. So maybe you do will you survive the and then apocalypse right aligned over here and this kind of existing in this space. Okay, so just play around with where you're putting your words. I think that's the most important thing on this ad. Everything else, the other elements, it cracked me up. I definitely like them. It would definitely get my attention if I was looking at a magazine. Okay, so great job, Dixie. Looking forward to your final decisions with where you're going to put everything there on the page. Okay, Paula, you opted in. I love your design overall. Your logo is looking really good. One thing I would say is you need to make sure you add in these other things. You have your headline, but you need to have your body copy and your call to action. And then your headline is too close up here to the top. So you definitely need to bring it down a little bit more so you have more space between where your letter ends and where the page ends. And then the other thing is I love your idea of doing this, but I think it maybe would be a better choice to see if the cookies could go off the page or you could complete some of the circles of the cookies because it's almost not recognizable at first glance that they're cookies because you don't have any of that circular shape. And so maybe if you could add a little bit of the circles in, like you could finish with the dust, but maybe try to preserve some of the circle, especially of this cookie, so it's recognizable that that's what it is. And then you have the dust over to the side. Okay, so be sure you add in those extra elements as well. Maybe kind of in this space, you could make this headline a little bit smaller and have it here. And then your call to action underneath that. And maybe instead of the brown, you play around with this red or this blue, so you tie in the logo too. and definitely try to add in some contrasting typefaces as well. So you have a nice sans serif, but maybe you do your call to action in all caps or something. So it keeps a little bit of that design principle working for your advantage. All right, I look forward to seeing your final. Thank you so much for your submission here. All right, Miss Shelby, you're the next one. And sorry if I'm running through these, second time saying everything. So I do think your ad feels a little bit vintage. I think somebody else mentioned that. So I would take this image into Photoshop and see if you can play around with the levels in it under image adjustments. See if you can add in a little bit more blue with your colors. Because right now it's very yellowy, orangey, and so it feels kind of like it's from the 70s. I think that in combination with your yellow, two-tone yellow background is one of the things that's dating it a little bit. I like this gray. It looks contemporary. And I like that you've added some color here to your headline. One thing, though, is I'd love to see if this color could match something a little bit more visually popping with the image. And I had the idea that maybe you could use this cute casserole dish and do red and white instead of this maroon. Okay, so if you did a nice red and then maybe white, maybe you have black in the background or something that will help it, or a nice gray that will help it feel a little bit more contemporary. Or even you could do black as well, but I think maybe if you're using this down here, gray, that would be nice. And then for your headline, I'd probably get rid of this extra measuring cup because you don't need two here. And I'd probably right align it. I'd move the KitchenAid over a little bit and right align your title. Success can stay nice and big. And then one measurement, I'd maybe make this half the size it is and place it underneath the success, which you could make a little bit bigger, and have it exist on this right line over here. And then instead of breaking up your ad, you need to let that white space work to your advantage. I'd get rid of these shapes that you've added in and have a nice, solid, consistent background cover where your typeface can be what's really going to jump out to you. All right, for the way it's made, there's no need to have this extra font down here that's distracting from your image. I'd pull this up underneath here too, probably, maybe in a contrasting font, or maybe you do this, but you do it all in caps with your call to action. Okay, so available at Sears or something. Okay, and then I definitely take the stroke off. See how you have this blue stroke on all your shapes? This shape, I get rid of it so there was no distraction behind your background color and your image. And it might even be fun to pull this image off the page so it looks like a cool full bleed, and your KitchenAid logo could be here on the page, okay? So play around with that. I also like the idea somebody else had of making it look like it's pouring, so it's all kind of like gloopy and gobby, which I think that'd be a cool idea. All right, so there's a lot of food for thought for you. Hopefully you could email me along the way, since it was maybe a lot of changes all at once. But feel free to send me your next draft if you want to, and I can take a look at it. But you're heading in the right direction. Just need to work on editing down. Less elements, less lines, more powerful colors, and more contrast with your typeface. And I think that's going to help pull this together. Okay, thanks, Shelby. Sorry you got a headache coming down the mountain. That's no fun. Okay, Joanne, you're next. I love your theme for this, Joanne. Spread the love with Williams-Sonoma. Make sure you remember to add in the body copy and a call to action. You need to have those as well, okay? So spread the love. Maybe that's nice and big. Then with Williams-Sonoma is smaller, and you could say, since 1962, Williams-Sonoma has made kitchens into homes, or, I don't know, something, whatever your slogan is or your body copy is underneath that. And then Williams-Sonoma Visit the Williams-Sonoma near you or something. Williams-Sonoma opening in whatever mall, whatever you want your call to action to be. And then even though you have Williams-Sonoma here on the page, you do need to also have their actual logo. So maybe you put that logo down here or over here. Make sure that's on the page so you can get credit for that. I'd love to see some variation with your typefaces. Make sure you're introducing some contrast when it comes to sizes, different sizes with your typefaces, contrasting typefaces, and maybe, you have some in italics, you have some caps, some not. Play around with it a little bit so it adds visual interest. And then the other thing is this is a somewhat literal interpretation of your ad, and one of the things you want to push yourself on is making it non-literal. I think these spoons look like they were taken the photo from the other direction. So I would probably flip them around since they look darker down here and put the shadow down here and the light facing toward where these lights are coming down onto the spoons. And then maybe you make this cookie dough into more of a heart shape and you have heart-shaped cookie dough, 1 or 2 on the counter or something. So try to figure out how you can make this even more non-literal than just cookie dough on a kitchen counter. And I would probably add a little bit of a drop shadow here so it looks a little bit more realistic, blended with your background kitchen selection. Okay, so looking forward to seeing your final, Joe. You're off to a good start. All right, David, you are next. And I did like the gold better. I thought that looked awesome. Overall, David, I really like where you're going with. Your typeface is exactly what I'm looking for. Contrast, color, you have everything you need, which is awesome. That's really almost half the fight when it comes to a good ad. Here are a few tips. Earlier, your pen, when it was gray, or silver, it looked like it was a little bit too cut into. The gold looks a little bit better. I don't think you noticed that you selected out his right or left, depending on if you're him or looking at him, collar here. So this is missing, okay?